Welcome to my series based on Zentangle's Bijou Be Well, done in May 2025. Each day, Zentangle put out a video featuring one pattern, and the design was meant to be drawn in a short amount of time, so you could just take a little time for yourself and kind of get yourself centered. I encourage you to go visit their YouTube channel. I'll have the link down in the comments, and you could see how they did their designs. This series is meant to walk you through how to draw each design, and then also to give you some alternative ideas for embellishments and ways to kind of zhuzh up that pattern. This video focuses on Cubine. For all cards in this series, I used the same tools, so you will see in every single video in this series a blue Micron 05 pen, a General's Indigo blue chalk pastel pencil, an 8B Graphite Pencil, 2 Tortillons, so one for blue, one for black, and white tiles. And of course, that's my trusty little pencil sharpener there as well. If you followed along with the Zentangle series, you will notice that they also include a white pencil and a tortillon for that. I chose to not use those for my series because I'm using a white tile, and I find that the white chalk pastel pencil really doesn't add very much to the design. Take a moment to gather your tools, get yourself centered, make sure you're sitting comfortably in your chair. When you're ready, let's begin. With our pencils, we will start with a seed-shaped string. We're not going to do a border, so I'm just drawing one arc going diagonally across the card, and then another on the other side, and then I pick up my pen. I will first trace over one half of my string, so I'm only going to do one side. And then I'm going to aura that line. In other words, I'm going to draw a parallel line. I'm going to come down a little ways and draw another arc. And then I'm going to go over a little ways more and do one more. You might decide you want to do one after that. We're aiming to make those stripes even-ish. And in fact, later on in the video, you'll see I'm going to add a line to make them more even. Then I'm going to go and turn my card, and right in the middle, I'm going to draw a straight line that goes from one side to the other. Notice that I'm pulling that line towards me. And then I'm going to create a grid by going first to one side and then the other, except that each of those lines aren't going to be straight up and down. They're slightly angled towards the middle. So we want to think about those lines kind of going down into a hole. So we want even looking boxes that are just slightly angled. The very bottom boxes and the tips of the seed might end up being partials. And then inside each of these boxes, I'm going to aura the top and one side. You can decide which direction you want to go. I'm going across the top and then the right side of the box. And I'm just going to go through and I'm going to do all of the boxes exactly the same way. When I get to a partial box, I take a look at what's happening around it and create a partial aura based on either what's happening next door or above it. It helps me visualize what I should be doing to continue this very consistent pattern. Here's the point where I realized I needed to draw one more arc to make those boxes a little more consistently shaped. The next step, I'm going to draw a diagonal line in each box, starting at the corner with the aura down to the opposite corner. And just like before, the partial boxes will get a bit of that diagonal line. The one thing that is going to end up happening here is not all of your boxes are going to be the same shape because we drew the lines on a bit of an angle. So don't try to make one big straight line from the top to the bottom of the seed shape. Deal with each box individually. Next, I'm going to deal with the sides of the boxes that do not have the aura. I'm going to come halfway up one side and draw a straight line that goes out to the diagonal, and then I'm going to go along the bottom edge and draw a straight line up to that diagonal and fill it in. So you end up with a small little box inside the big box, and then once it's filled in, you have the solid bottom of this three-dimensional shape that we're making. So to make this a truly three-dimensional shape here, I'm going to use both color and graphite to create a bright wall and a dark wall. If you are only using graphite, skip the spots that use color and go on ahead and just do the graphite portion of this tutorial. If you're using color, I'm putting a fairly thick stripe of the chalk pastel just above the smaller filled in square. I'm doing what I would consider the back wall of the cube. I do not take that blue all the way up to the top though. I do it about halfway up, give or take. You don't have to be super precise, but the point is to leave some of the top of that side white. And when we blend it out, we'll create a bit of a gradient. So I'm going to go through and each of the boxes will get a little bit of blue. As usual, if you have partials, you'll have to decide whether that partial should get blue or not. It might be that your partial doesn't actually show enough of that back wall to get any blue on it. Before I put my chalk pastel pencil down, I'm going to put a very small amount of blue on the other wall. So right at the very top, just on the inside of the aura, I'm putting a very thin line of blue. If you're using graphite, skip this step as well. Next, I'm going to blend that blue out. So I'm either going to blend the blue upwards or downwards. When I blend it upwards, I'm creating a gradient. I might leave a little bit of white at the very top of that square or not. It'll just kind of depend on how much space I have. But the goal is to have it very, very dark near where that filled in square is and then much lighter at the top. For the opposite wall, I'm just pulling that chalk pastel down a little ways. We're going to use graphite to fill in the rest of that space so it gets very, very dark looking. So you don't have to worry too much about pulling that blue down very far. We just want a little bit of blue peeping out from the graphite when we get to that step. Next, we'll grab our graphite pencil, and on the dark wall where it's currently white, I'm going to put a very thick line of graphite just above the inked in box. If you have not added any color to your card, you may want to actually put a little more on this side and a very, very thin line of graphite above the box on the opposite wall, just like right against the ink. So when you blend it up, you'll have a very dark wall and then a slightly gray wall. And now it's time to blend. I take the graphite and bring it right up against the blue. And then also I will run it into that corner and really deepen it in the corner. So the more you run your tortillon over graphite, the darker it gets. So I spend a little extra time in the corner and then also right along that ink line. If you put a little bit of graphite on the other wall above the inked in box, then just blend it very close to the box. Don't bring it too far up the wall. So you want just a tiny little bit of a shadow right there where it meets the ink. If you look at how the blue is much darker down there at the bottom of the box, you can see where you really want to focus your graphite. For the final step, I'm going to pick up my pencil and along the bottom edge of my seed shape, I'm going to add a bit of graphite. I'm going to create a very deep shadow along just this edge, as if everything is disappearing either into the card or towards a middle. So I want to just create a very deep shadow for that effect. And when I blend it out, I'm blending the graphite into my design and not onto the card. Take a moment and admire the work that you put into this design. And when you're ready, grab your pen and add your chop. And there you have it, Cubine.